Here is a Hello, welcome to Walk in the Park. My name is Tony Ingram, and this is September 5th, 2018. This is episode 203. If you want to see all of my episodes of Walk in the Park, you can go to my website, walkinthepark.tv. That is a URL, at tv.tv. And you can see them there. You can search for them in different categories and so forth. And this episode will be up online within a day or two. This is a public access television series, weekly series in Ithaca, New York, on Channel 13. Pegasus is the studio here. Pegasus stands for Public Educational Government Access System. So we have channels 13, 15, and 16. So check it out. You can go to the website, see the schedule of all of our series, and you can also become a producer yourself if you live in the Ithaca area, and you can take a course and get certified to use the studios and the equipment and be your own show, produce your own show, your own producer. So that's what I've been doing for years, and it's a lot of fun. A lot of work, but a lot of fun. And we have a lot to do today. We're going to go to two parks. We're going to start off to go to Fillmore Glen State Park. So this Google Earth image looking at Ithaca down at the bottom there, at the southern end of Cayuga Lake in the Finger Lakes region of upstate New York. And then just in the upper center there, you can see it says Fillmore Glen State Park, the south end of another lake, which is Owasco Lake. And Owasco Lake is just east of Cayuga Lake, two of the 11 Finger Lakes. You can see Seneca Lake on the left, and so forth. So we're going to zoom in a little bit here, go down to the valley just south of Owasco Lake. So that's that green swath coming down from the upper left there. And Owasco Lake would be up in the upper left. And the village of Moravia is in the middle. And Fillmore Glen is a gorge. You can see the outline of the park extending east from the label, extending to the lower right. And then there's the outline of Summerhill State Forest, which is also obviously but it's not a state park, it's state forest. That's another whole discussion, is the difference. Okay, let's zoom down some more. Oh, now we're right down onto the lower end of the park. And this is, you can see a gorge, a ravine, a wooded area coming down from the lower right, going up through to the middle, and then you see some development. Well, right in just above the center there is a swimming area in there, and we're going to take a look at that right now. We're going to go to that swimming area. So just stand by. We'll bring up this short little video that kind of nice. We'll bring it right up here, coming up. So that's a sweet little swimming area, very small. And there are several of them like that in the Finger Lakes State Parks, in Gorges, at the mouth of Gorges. That's actually at the mouth of Fillmore Glen. Then I'll show you what's real nearby, the waterfall nearby, in a second. So we have that at Fillmore Glen. We have that at Treman State Park. We have one like that at Buttermilk Falls State Park, and also at Stony Brook State Park. And of course, the one at Buttermilk Falls and Treman State Parks is a waterfall right there pouring into the swimming area. So the swimming is closed in most of the parks, but Treman State Park for the next 2 weekends will be open. So just on the weekends, Saturday, Sunday. But otherwise, I think they're all closed. I'm not sure of any others. Anyway, let's go now just up the gorge. Just a short walk, very short walk past the swimming area. We'll take a look at this waterfall. It's called the Cowsheds. So actually, that waterfalls had different names. Generally been called lower falls, but the area that it's in, you can see that overhanging ledge to the upper left. That's on your screen. Is a limestone ledge and creates sort of a high, shallow cave there. And it's said that in the days before the park, local farmers' cattle would come up in there and get out of the sun in the summertime, kind of like now, except now people go up in there. So that limestone, the waterfall pours over that limestone, and that is a very extensive layer of limestone called the Tully limestone, which goes across New York State and across the central part of New York State, and this also forms the bottom of Taughannock Gorge. And so it's widespread. A number of other waterfalls in the region across the Finger Lakes pour over that resistant layer of limestone. And it also forms the top of the short little waterfall, the beginning of the gorge at Taughannock Falls State Park. So pretty cool. There we go. The Cowshed Falls, or Lower Falls, pouring over the same limestone as many others. Salmon Creek Falls in Ludlowville in Lansing also pours over this same formation. So, well, we're going to go to Taughannock Falls State Park. So, boom, we go over to Cayuga Lake, southern end. You can see Ithaca down there in the lower right. And then, of course, Taughannock is labeled about 10 miles up the west side of the lake. Let's go zoom into Taughannock Falls. Here's the Taughannock Point. The gorge is winding up from the bottom up to Taughannock Point. And zoom right into, now this is, well, hey, look at the picture here. If you look at just in the center of the picture, to the left of that is an area that there's a building in there. We're going to zoom down on that. There's the building that's right in the center. That is the regional headquarters of the Finger Lakes State Parks, where I worked for 24 years. And we're going to gather there with a group. This is actually in mid-August. It was a Three Gorges invasive species public walk. So we'll get into that here in a second here. So this is there's a program going on in the parks right now that's called the Three Gorges Project to monitor, map, remove, and replace with native species, invasive species in our parks. And they've chosen the Buttermilk Falls, Treman State Park, and Taughannock Falls State Park. And I'm going to just read you the description here. It's called, the Three Gorges Project is a 2-year initiative funded by the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative and administered by the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency. The Three Gorges Project focuses on invasive species management and restoration in the riparian areas of Buttermilk Falls, Treman, and Taughannock Falls State Park. This project supports an 8-person Forces Stewardship Corps. Forces stands for Friends of Recreation, Conservation, and Environmental Stewardship, for summer 2018 and again in summer 2019. The Stewardship Corps spent the summer of 2018 mapping, surveying, and removing invasive species, in addition to mapping and collecting native plants and seed and educating the public. So let's go right into it. We're going to go to the rim. There was a walk that took off that went from the headquarters building there in the center right over to the rim of the gorge. You might be able to make out the rim trail, and then it drops off into Taughannock Gorge. So we're going to go right to that rim right now. We'll talk to, well, Gwen will talk to us. Okay, coming right up.
The Three Gorges project this summer, and I'm going to give a bit of background on the plant we've been working with for a lot of the summer, which is pale swallowwort. So pale swallowwort is an invasive species, which means it's non-native and it causes some type of harm. This can be harm to the economy, to the environment, or to human health. This one's mainly harm to the environment. So it's from mainly from the Ukraine and Russia area. There's a similar climate there, so it does pretty well here. And it probably came over as an ornamental in the 1800s, and we know it escaped from a Massachusetts botanic garden in 1864 and started spreading from there. It was first found in New York in 1897 in Monroe County, and it's been spreading throughout the state since then. It was first noticed in Ithaca around 2001, and that's when it started becoming a species that we were looking at. It's a drought-resistant and disturbance-resistant species, which helps it spread fairly quickly and do well in a lot of areas. And it will be flowering in early summer and then start seeding in July, and from there it'll start spreading. And a plant will create a lot of seed pods, which look like this, kind of like green beans. I'll pass this around. Yeah, and it can get pretty tall, so this is actually one of the shorter ones we found. I've seen some where like I'll hold it up against me and it'll flip over. It's a twining vine, which means it wraps around itself and other things, which helps it climb. Another example of that with some more seed pods and how bad it can get is here. If you look closely when I pass it around, you can see it's wrapping around itself. And then when it's flowering, the flowers look like this. For pale swallowwort, which is the species we've been looking at, they're kind of pale pink color. Look kind of like stars. I have an example of that here, and I'll also pass around the picture. There you go. Right. It's similar to black swallowwort in that it has opposite leaves and is a twining vine, but black swallowwort has darker flowers and a different root system. The roots on these are generally in a dense crown, and we'll have an example of these later, which grow up really thickly. And that's one of the reasons we're removing it. Since they grow in such dense patches and the roots are so thick, they push out any native species that might be growing in the area. And then in addition, they are harmful to a lot of native insects in the area. For example, it's similar to milkweed, which monarch butterflies lay their eggs on. And sometimes the monarchs will lay their eggs on the swallowwort instead. And when the caterpillars hatch, they'll eat the swallowwort, and that doesn't give them the nutrients they want. It's also toxic to them, so they will end up dying. So that's one of the reasons we're trying to remove species like this, because it can cause harm to the environment. And then another reason we're removing specifically in the gorges, as Becky mentioned, is that these are riparian areas, and there's a high potential for them to start growing in these areas, and then also a high potential for them to spread other places through these waterways. So if we remove from the areas around the gorges in Taughannock, Treman, and Buttermilk, we can create a bit of a buffer zone and hopefully keep them from spreading to other places and furthering the problem. In these parks, we've mainly been doing manual removal, which we will talk a lot about later. And we've also been doing some mapping and surveying for herbicide treatments, and my colleagues will be talking about that a lot later. But if you would like, keep an eye out while you're walking for some of the swallowwort, and hopefully we can get all that gone really soon and make sure that it won't be spreading any further.
I'm really curious as to how you manually eradicate it, since our place, which is just across the lake on the east side, is inundated with it, and it becomes very difficult with its intertwined roots to get out.
Yeah, we will definitely be talking about that later. We will have a demonstration of one of the ways we manually remove it when we go down into the gorge, and we'll make sure that you aren't anywhere near it so you don't have to deal with the blisters. But yeah, that is definitely something we've been dealing with a lot this summer, how to manually remove it effectively.
And you have been successful.
Yes, we have. We'll be talking about that a little bit later too, but we've gotten rid of the majority of the swallowwort in the 3 parks. There's always some individuals that we miss, or we'll go back later and there are seedlings that we missed, so that's always a possibility, but we'll be having people come back in the future to be dealing with that as well.
So black swallowwort, is that a problem?
If you have a big enough population of it, yes, because it has a different root system. So it has rhizomatous roots, which run out further and are much harder to remove because you have to make sure you get every single part of the root. Whereas swallowwort, as long as you get the root crown, it won't resprout. So we've had one black swallowwort in Treman that Becky has been dealing with for a while, but we didn't find it this year.
It was there. Yeah.
It was there?
There's an individual plant that I've removed for 3 years now.
Oh,
And it's just one, you know. So you can imagine if you've got a patch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're lucky in that it's just the one, we know where it is, and we're trying to deal with it. But if you have lots of black swallowwort, that is when it gets to be an issue because it's much harder to manually remove than pale swallowwort.
So it's also an invasive, obviously.
It is.
Those flowers are dark purple.
Yeah, they're a dark purple, and I think the leaves might be a bit darker, but the main difference is the flower color.
Are swallowwort infestations being mapped statewide?
I'm not sure about statewide. I know in the state parks a lot of people are mapping it to track how bad the infestation is and what's been done to try and control it. I don't have a lot of data on other parks, but it is being mapped most places. It shows up because it is such a big problem.
IMAP Invasives is a really great resource. Have you heard of that?
What is it again?
IMAP Invasives. So they have an app and they have a website, but it's great. It's a citizen science thing, so anyone can upload data. You have to make a username, but it's very simple. But then you can search for any species and see all the observations around the state. And people, when you submit something, you can submit a picture, so then the experts will verify. So you can see either unconfirmed or confirmed observations, but they've got, I don't even know how many species. It's a great resource though. We use it all the time.
And is that where we should report if we have this?
Yep, that's perfect.
Okay, so here's that website again, NY IMAP Invasives. Go there and you can learn all about how you can add to the data, the knowledge that we have about the existence of the invasive species in New York State. So participate in a little bit of citizen science. So now we're going to go down into Taughannock Gorge with this same group on that same day, and we're going to actually get a demonstration of the proper way to remove this plant. This plant is really extensive. I've seen a lot of it. There was a lot of it in Taughannock Park when I worked there, and much of that has been removed. We're also going to come back here in another episode and look at their demonstration of how they map this stuff and survey it and monitor it, which is a very interesting process, very systematic and scientific. So let's go down in the gorge, and with this group of invasive species, three Gorges project staff, and see what their see how they do it, and then how we might do it. If you have this on your own land, or if you're going to do it in the state parks, you need to be a certified volunteer, as it says in the video coming up. So let's take a look.
My name is Garrett. I'm going to talk today about manual removals. It's something that we've been working on all season long doing for pale swallowwort. We've been doing a little bit of some honeysuckle as well. But yeah, it's something that basically we really need to focus on just getting the root crown out, and that's because that itself will take out the plant. If you leave that in there, it's still going to have a chance to resprout, which is obviously still going to be an issue for next year. So
Can people hear?
yeah, can everyone hear all right? Okay, awesome. So here we have a picture. This picture right here is from Buttermilk Falls, just behind their camping area. We worked on a patch with the accelerator core, it's also known as the ECC. And basically, so we'll pass it around. On the other side is what happened after our morning there, which is, as you can see, a dramatic difference. That's just from us going in there with our pickaxes and our shovels, and just putting in a couple hours of work. So
How many of you?
we probably had about definitely more than 10.
It was a big group that day, yeah. So
Yeah,
we had
10 to
our
15
7
probably.
and then another like 8 joined.
Yep.
Yeah, it was great.
All right. So for me, a lot of people like to use shovels. I like to use a pickaxe just because I like to swing stuff. So let's do a quick demonstration on how we get them out. And basically, here's our bag. Every single time we take out a plant, we need to bag them, because if we leave them on the soil, they can still possibly be resprouted if they're able to make it back in. So, right. So here we have some tagged plants right here. go for this one. It's the easiest probably. So with me, I like to just make sure, I like to pull the plant just to make sure I know where the root is, because I don't want to go swinging in there and not seeing it, because I have the potential to just cut this root right off and leave that crown in there. So with the pickaxe, I like to use this side too, as well as just kind of rip it out. And then there you go. As you can see, there's some root crown right here, and that's got all the little roots on it too. So luckily, he took the whole thing out. So that's just one plant that we took out, and yeah, great. So it's kind of a simple process. The main thing is just making sure you know where the root is and making sure you're not kind of swinging aimlessly and just chopping off the root crowns. Okay? So.
But you don't have any rocks here.
Nope, but as you can see, sometimes the other plants do get stuck. This kind of happens with it because of how these roots are. So typically what I do is I kind of just have to bag of that as well when you take it out. They're already going to die. So. So for bigger patches, I use this side because it's able to just rip up a lot of ground and I'm able to get underneath it a little bit more. So I can take out a couple more than just one individual plant at a time. So that's what I try to do here.
Is that big root one part of it?
Yep, this is probably going to be part of this guy right here.
No, the other one. That.
Yep. Oh, this is just a normal, it looks like a tree root or a shrub root. Yep, there we go. There's a root right there.
No, I was wondering about that one.
Yeah, this one is just looks like a tree root.
Is it?
Yep. There you go. You can see too, another thing is, this is our biggest pain, is these things can be pretty small sprouts. Look how tiny that is. Obviously, when we're manually removing and we're dealing with a big patch, these are hard to spot, and that's why we sometimes get the stragglers that appear next year. So it's important to kind of try and get every plant as possible. Obviously, it's hard sometimes, you just can't see them, they're so small, and their roots will rip out because they're so tiny. So, yeah, that's just the basic overview. Just all you gotta make sure you do is just get that root crown out, and then you're good to go. So, yep.
You can get the other?
Yeah, I can do the whole thing. Here's our two big guys here too. As you can see, it still has a seed pod on it as well. Good thing we're taking it out.
So as we walk down the road, it looks as though the seed pods have been cut off.
Yep.
So that's...
Yep, so I'll talk about that too. So as you are walking down the road, or even if you've been on the trail, you might notice that some of these plants don't have their seed pods anymore. It looks like that half of it was cut off. The reason why we do that is because for areas that we're not able to get to for manual removals, or areas that we're not able to have enough money to treat with herbicide, we have to cut off the seed pods because that just gives ourselves another year to make sure that it's not going to spread. And also, if you cut off the seed pods enough after a consecutive amount of years, the plant itself could possibly die as well. So it's a management thing, so it's something that possibly could hurt the plant over time, which is a good thing, and something that just keeps it from spreading. So
now
you find after you do that the stems get thicker?
Actually, the ones, if you see on the roadside, they're actually starting to shrivel up right now. So the plants aren't actually looking too good that we cut them off on Monday. So on the when we were coming down that hill on the left-hand side, going down towards the hill, there was a whole patch on the left-hand side that we had just cut with the help of some forestry people as well. Yeah, so, or actually Cornell people, sorry, with the help of some Cornell incoming freshman students, yeah. So, and yeah, we noticed that they're actually starting to shrivel up once we cut them off, but they're going to still probably resprout next year as well.
So how do you deal with people that learn about these plants and they see them and then they start removing them themselves, just like park visitors? Like maybe somebody here goes, oh, I see that, I'm going to rip it up.
Yeah. Does anyone want to possibly give a try manually removing a plant?
No, but what I mean is that I know in the 6 Mile Creek Preserve in Ithaca, and actually along the town parks, they're upset about people doing that because they may not do it the right way.
Yep.
They may actually end up spreading the plant, that sort of thing. So do you have any policy regarding that?
Yeah, honestly, unless you really know what you're doing, I believe that you shouldn't go ahead and do it. So everyone here technically was trained to go remove a plant. It's a simple process, but it's something that if you don't know that you have to get that root crown out, you're just going to do more damage than good at that point, along with just kind of making a mess too. So I think a good way is just to possibly watch some videos online. If you know anybody within the Parks Department doing invasive species, maybe ask them. All of us are obviously good help for that. And yeah, so I wouldn't just go in there swinging willy-nilly unless you know what you're doing, honestly. So. Yeah.
So you don't need some kind of authorization as a volunteer for doing that?
For in the parks itself?
That's what I'm talking about.
We do. I think we do. Yeah. Yeah. You do need authorization as a volunteer in the parks for removing. Yep.
And the supervision.
Yep. That's.
Okay. So so there's a plant that you may have on your property. It's pretty widespread in central New York now. I know there's a lot of it up near Syracuse, but a lot of it along Cowsheds Lake, and that's how you properly remove it. Because one of the things that they stress is you should replace it with a native plant. In one of our other episodes, and maybe the last one, we talked about that. Nurseries, you can get that sort of thing, or from your own land if you know what you're doing, and try to plant in native plants that are appropriate for that site. So we're going to finish off here with a picture of Taughannock Falls, which was taken that same day, actually just a little bit later. Walked down to the end of the gorge and took a picture of the falls. And this was the day after the big flood that we had in mid-August. So that's all we have for today. And I want to thank you for joining me, and I encourage you to turn off this screen and go out for a walk in the park. And we'll go now to our goodbye video clip. Coming right up. Is a